Teach yourself a great methodology that works for you. You can take it anywhere. You can apply that in the hotel. You can apply that in the park. You can apply it at home, and then you can apply it in the gym.
Simon Waterson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Dude, I am so excited to meet you. I've been following you. I love your work. I love intelligent fitness. I love everything you're about. And and I'm a huge fan of like the James Bond series.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and I'm proud of all those things and all the films that I've kind of like worked on, and I sometimes when I look back on a lot of things, I'm pretty shocked of the amount of work that I've done.
But
And
you're actually like a real life James. I mean, you're a former Marine or
well,
current Marine.
yeah, well, no,
Once a
I
Marine,
was.
always a Marine, right?
Well, yeah, but Marine. I mean, it was I took a different route. I was in the Navy first, and then I joined like a helicopter like commando squadron, and
No big deal.
no, but you know what? I don't have any regrets for all that. I really kind of like don't. It's given me, I believe, subliminally, kind of like the tools to be able to deal with the business that I'm in within the same realm of film, because you're just basically taking that kind of like structure and you're applying it into film, and it's pretty similar. It's a pretty kind of like similar kind of like scenario. Everyone's got a job, everyone's got to do it. You've got to be on time, and you've got to get the results, and that's it. Same as the military.
You're very humble. You're a rock star. So for people that don't know, Simon is you were James Bond's you were Daniel Craig's personal trainer for his entire tenure as
Yeah.
James Bond, and then even before that,
Yes.
you were
Pierce.
Pierce.
Yeah. For a couple as well.
I want to hear the full story. But first, how did you transition from being in the Navy, right, to then becoming a personal trainer? And also, how did your experience like in service influence how you've approached your training philosophy?
So yeah, so I did 7, 8 years in the Navy, military, and then I transitioned out of there, and I went back to college and I studied and I did a little bit of. First of all, I wanted to be kind of like a physical therapist, and that kind of it was a bit too much for me, I think, and I enjoyed the fitness and the nutrition side of things, and so I just studied like a variation of kind of like things, optimum sports nutrition, and a little bit of like sports therapy, so I knew a little bit more about like the body, and then training was natural anyway, because you're in the military, you work out, you do stuff. Not like conventional, not conventional, a little bit more different. But that's really funny saying that. Yeah, not it's not like training in the military, but it's come full circle now. All those military applications that we were training, they're the ones that actually did work, and they're the ones that are being implemented now. And I just smile to myself and go, wow. So we've gone through all the kind of like the circus of people like looking for the golden egg of fitness, and in actual fact, they were right in the first place. It was just all about a little bit of consistency, intensity, and you will get the desired results. And that is basically where it kind of like stems from.
Hmm.
Simplistic. I'm very, very simplistic with my kind of like method. And that, like you mentioned before, like the few books that I've written, and the latest one, the 10-week kind of like challenge, is pretty not far off what I was doing in the military 25 years ago. It's not that far off. It's basically get moving, join these little things together, enjoy it, create some intensity, get the adaptation, get the desired results. Done.
Hmm. Amazing. I would imagine though that like an injury while in the military would be a massive setback, and so too for like an actor, for somebody on set where everything is just so meteorically expensive. An injury is like probably the worst thing
Oh,
that could pop. So how do you approach your training with that in the back of your head?
yeah, you're running you're on a tightrope. So and like with all kind of like everybody that's in the fitness kind of like game, you are on a kind of like an injury tightrope, and you've got that kind of like risk versus results, and you have to be a little bit kind of like careful, but you want the results, but that extra set rep weight, whatever it may be, could be the difference between kind of like going back 6 weeks or progressing And that's what's really you've got to be, and that's where you're tuned in, I think, and that's where through my experience, I'm very, very tuned in to watching people the way that and observing, and you know all the idiosyncrasies,
Hmm.
and you learn idiosyncrasies really, really quickly. The kind of the little kind of like the little ticks or the observations, and that's what you do. And even with like the Bond movies, and it's quite funny because I can tell when, especially when I've worked with someone quite closely for a long, long time, when they're hungry, when they're getting a little bit irritable, when training's a little bit, that's one rep too much, that's one rep not enough. So you learn, like you're constantly observing all the time, and it can be the slightest things, and you learn about people's ticks. They're kind of like, if Daniel's rubbing his ear and stuff like that, I'm thinking, yeah, he knows in kind of like 4 minutes time that I'm going to turn up with a shake and a snack.
Hmm.
But that's your job. You're there to kind of like make sure that everything is like running smoothly, the physical aspect of it and the mental side of it as well. So you know when to pull back a little bit, and then you know when to increase.
Hmm.
And within the contents of the whole of film, um, every day is different. Massive stunt activity day. You have to you have got to adjust the right calories to kind of like be capable of doing that day with the right amount of energy. And then the next day you've got a huge dialogue day. So then you're adjusting the what type of calories or the macro mix of what he's doing that day. So you're constantly kind of like rejigging every day how that person kind of like eats, how they train, how they get enough sleep, out should we be just doing a recovery session. So you are literally micromanaging an actor like an athlete.
Wow. Give us a taste of that. Like, how might you change his macros for a day that's mostly dialogue based versus a day that's like all stunts?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think like it would just be like the carb mix.
Hmm.
It would just kind of like just change kind of slightly like the percentage, or which sometimes we would be doing something where there's an aesthetic scene, and would be in intermittent fasting for a little bit, just to bring down like the calories, and just to get a little bit more kind of like a little bit leaner. But then all of a sudden you got 2 days of kind of like dialogue, full kind of like full kind of like Bond in and out of things. And yeah, and so I would just increase kind of like carbs a bit. And
Well,
so
because you're also paying you also have to pay attention to his energy, right? Like
yeah.
he can't be, I would imagine, experiencing blood sugar dips on days where he's like on set 16 hours having to remember intense dialogue.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, and it's all about I just kind of keep a constant flow. Every couple of hours, there is always like a little bit of a refeed.
Hmm.
Every couple of hours, there's kind of like there's something coming. So the psychology around that is like, you're never actually on those days. He's never thinking about when am I going to eat? What time is it? There's none of that, because he's got the security blanket of me, kind of like every 2 hours, kind of like going, now you need to consume this, now you need to consume this, so it's basically a consumption every 2 hours, whether that's in liquid, whether that's in kind of like just normal food. I just keep it very, 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 very kind of like stable throughout the day.
Hmm.
But the aesthetics are always really, really hard, and we go down the route, and we do all the things, and I use a lot of the old techniques of a little bit of water manipulation, like for an aesthetic shot. And I've done that a few times with Captain America, and I've done it with Chris Pratt on Guardians of the Galaxy, and with Dan coming out the water. And you use those philosophies. They're very difficult, and they're very objective whether they work or not. But you get something. You're just trying to get that little bit of like the 1% theory. You're
Hmm.
trying to get that 1%. There's a very famous like cycle coach over here. He uses the 1% theory, and if he can get 1% out of everything that he's kind of like giving his athletes, that's the performance side of things, the nutritional side of things, the recovery side of things, the mental health side of things. If he can get 1% off everything, he's on a 4% winner. So I'm always looking for that 1% theory
Hmm.
to try and kind of just to try and kind of like get the edge for them, because on camera, it's it shows.
This episode of the show is sponsored by House of Macadamias. I'm a huge fan of macadamia nuts, but they've always been cost prohibitive. They've always been the most premium and expensive nut. That's why I'm super glad that House of Macadamias is now making macadamia nuts easily accessible to all. They've partnered with farmers in South Africa to democratize macadamia nuts, making macadamia nuts finally affordable. Macadamias are incredible. They're super high in healthy monounsaturated fat. They are vegan, keto, and paleo approved. And House of Macadamias makes all kinds of macadamia-based products. You can get dry roasted macadamias, which are my personal favorite. They come in a myriad of different flavors, like zesty salsa flavor. They are 10 out of 10 delicious. And if you go to houseofmacadamias.com and use promo code MAX, you'll get 20% off of your order. Thank you so much, House of Macadamias, for sponsoring this episode of the show. I love that. Well, because like 1% doesn't seem like a lot, but it's compounding interest,
Yes.
right? Like you do 1% better each day.
Each day, yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, so just try to find that 1% theory, and it's a good theory, but to find 1% when you're trying to be optimum anyway is very, very difficult.
I mean, that scene when it broke, like when the paparazzi, you know, broke the Daniel coming out of the water for the first time, and like even before Casino Royale came out, like jaws were on the floor. Like this was the first time that an actor looked like a killer.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm really proud of that moment. And it is a moment of kind of, I feel that the bar was raised. There was nothing really before that, unless unless you look back, kind of like the Schwarzenegger and Stallone kind of like era like that. But Schwarzenegger came out as being a pro bodybuilder, so to have what you would say would be a normal actor make that huge transformation was, hopefully, I was raising the bar. And also as well, which is great, but also as well, that it's a conscious decision. It wasn't, and sometimes we think, oh, was it a bit of an accident, or did you just work out hard and you just happen to look like that genetically? It was a conscious decision, and it's especially like for the Bonds, like he's very meticulous with what he wanted to look like, what he wanted to move like, what he wanted to, through the 5 movies. It was like, okay, number 1, it's kind of like imposing, coming out of the water. I can do my job. It's like I can really kind of like hurt people if I needed to. The next one, right? I've been in the job for X amount of time. I'm leaner. I'm faster. I'm more aware. My performance is better. Then you kind of like, and then we had a little bit of a dip where he kind of like he leaves the service within the context of the movie, and he looks like pretty, and that's hard as well, because then I've got to make him look terrible. It's like, oh God, we've got to do the terrible shot,
like Skyfall at the beginning of Skyfall.
Yes, you got to, you're washed up, you're out, you're done, you're blah blah. But it's really difficult because then nothing. It's not filmed kind of like chronologically, so you're trying to like then pick up the nutritional kind of like patterns of kind of like going, okay, so we'll increase calories here, so you're a little bit like not so sharp, and then we're going to go back and we're gonna like change the macros, decrease the calories, increase cardio, let's get the performance going again. And it's like, on top of kind of like, right, you've got stunt rehearsals for 2 hours, you've got training with me for kind of like an hour, or it should be really now recovery because I need to change that. So it becomes very, very complicated, and it is managing a proper athlete.
Yeah, for real. You're turning him into an athlete. Well, like if you had to, what was his body fat percentage at the beginning of in Casino Royale? He was shredded.
Yeah, pretty lean. I always just I had a real kind of like, as long as we were below 10, I was always kind of like happy. I really, the metrics was never a kind of like thing that I wanted, because it's really hard with metrics, because you get that you can become a little bit of, I think, well, as an actor, they become, not all actors, but a lot of actors can get a little bit obsessed with metrics, because that is the nature of how what their thought process is. So they would be kind of like very much like, they want to know about their costume, they want to know about their makeup, their hair. They're kind of like, then they've got to know lined camera angles, lighting, and it goes on and on and on. They've already got so much on their plate anyway. So it's for me to alleviate all that and just go, look, I've got you. It's like, and that's the trust that you have to kind of like you have to get. And I kind of I've got him, so I've got your nutrition, don't worry. I've got your training, don't worry. The recovery, I've got X, Y, and Z. Whether you need to kind of like whatever that may be, whether I need to put you on the table with a physio, or you have like deep tissue stuff, treatment stuff, whether you need kind of like anything, I will just like manage that. And yeah, that's the I think that's the thing that I take away from it myself as well, is that for me it's exhausting for myself. I've got to be a little bit careful, so I have to invest back in myself. But with Daniel, especially like with the bonds, the great thing is that the system that we kind of like well, with hindsight, that now I know works, is that he never actually wanted a complete trainer. He wanted a training partner.
Hmm.
So I trained and did exactly the same as him. His workout was my workout. His nutrition was my nutrition. His recovery was my nutrition. So if I was in pain and I was struggling, I would know he would be in pain and he was struggling.
Wow.
So I was very empathetic
Hmm.
because I was completely on the same regime.
Wow. How did you measure success? Was it just purely based on like appearance, or was it like lifts, like that he was getting stronger with every workout?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. I think like visually, I mean, I'm looking and I can see like visually, like I said before, you're constantly monitoring and looking, and maybe not giving so much feedback, because don't need them to get obsessed with what's kind of happening. Trust the process, just trust in the process. And there was a little bit of I would do like a little bit of body fat kind of like every now and again, just to kind of like whether that would be bioimpedance, or whether we just
Hmm.
get like the old kind of like calipers out, whatever. We looked at that. Strength wise, just dudes going to the gym sometimes. Dudes going to the gym going, yeah, got a couple of plates on there. Yeah, I got a couple of. It's just same old, very very old school. I wasn't being kind of like obsessively kind of like factual and writing down every set, every rep, every gain. It was just like, let's see how we feel, because the same with the with the different days. When you're doing films, you feel, and anybody in life, you feel different on different days. And if you keep kind of like writing everything down and setting kind of like goals, and you don't reach those goals, you'll be like, oh shit, man. It's like, yeah, I
Hmm.
should be lifting kind of like X amount of weight and doing X amount of reps today, but I haven't reached any of it. I'm only like at 75% of it. And then you just setting yourself up for a bad day. It's the same with scales, like weighing yourself. Yeah,
Hmm.
it works for some people, it doesn't work for others, but why determine your mood by stepping on the scales?
Hmm.
It's like, and going, oh God, because we're our bodies are constantly changing. We're constantly kind of like, whether we got a little bit more water, or we kind of like, all the different kind of like physiological things that are happening, the millions of kind of like chemical reactions that happen in our body on a daily basis, and we're judging it on kind of like a number on a scale. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, to be
I mean,
honest.
and you know this better than anybody, because you, in a way, like kind of grew up. I mean, you were like, already an adult, obviously, but like you've been with him for the entire journey. And he, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like in his mid 30s at the beginning of Casino Royale, and with No Time to Die, he was what, like 50?
Yes, yeah. So, and it's a really great point, and the process kind of like stayed the same, but it was just the time. It just takes a little bit longer.
Hmm.
As you get older, you just take your time a little bit more, and I
Hmm.
think that's naturally like what we do when we just kind of get a little bit kind of like older. Doesn't mean to say that you can't still have the amazing great results. Of course you can, but the process just takes a little bit longer.
Hmm. It's crazy to me that I right now am 5 years older than he was, 6 years older than he was in Casino. Because whenever I see, James Bond, he's older than you,
Yeah,
right? Oh, he's always older than you.
yeah,
But
yeah, 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 yeah. It's funny, and getting back to like your point of what you were saying about when he came out the water and raising the bar, and then I think, and then what obviously the calls that I kind of like get then to do other movies is based on that particular kind of like scene. So I got the call to do Captain America with Chris Evans, and I proper like interview and with Joe Johnson, the director, and all the other kind of like Marvel heads, and they just said, "Oh, can you make Captain America just look like Daniel Craig?" And you're like, well, I can, yeah. And then that's all about, and then all these interviews now, you have to manage expectation, and you kind of have to talk. You have to you got to have a default, and I have a default in interviews now. Kind of look, I'll give you 100% of his genetic capability, and, and also as well, I'll give you kind of like 100% of his compliance. And that's the thing. So, because not everyone can be as compliant or kind of, into the regime as kind of like he was to get those kind of like results,
It's like, but that's like the double-edged sword of massive success. It's like a musician, right? That has like a hit song on the radio. They're gonna be playing that song for the rest of their lives at every show, you know?
Yeah. So it's quite funny, and that was my yeah. So that was the job that I did in between like a few Bond movies was Captain America, and I was really privileged to I flew out to Boston, lived in Boston for 6 7 months to make Chris into Captain America coming
Whoa.
out the pod, and that was based on the same principles as what I'd done with Daniel. So I already had a good template, and but then I'm just looking at kind of like genetics, and then I'm thinking, oh, I'm okay here because he's got like 10 years less age than what I did it the last time. So yeah, so you're forming like I've got a great template now of where I can go with kind of like with the exercise regimes that I kind of like use.
Is there any is there any like body part area that you place particular emphasis on, knowing that there's going to be, for example, a shirtless scene coming up? Like you spend a little more time on the delts than your average person might, or
No,
no?
no, not really.
Hmm.
I do.
What are the secrets? Come on.
Well, I do. I am a little bit. I'm really kind of like. I do stick to like what I kind of think is that like aesthetic is just a complete byproduct of performance,
Hmm.
and I always kind of say that. So I don't, I try and ignore the aesthetic a little bit and keep the performance going, keep the performance going. Then one day I'll kind of go, okay, let's just do this session with the shirt off, and then look in the mirror, and then they go, holy shit, I'm like, yeah, that can work. But I'm really kind of as balanced as possible because there's so many different factors for an actor what they're being asked to do. They've got fight choreography, or if they haven't got fight choreography, they have got like a sword on their back that they have to swing around. So I have to be conscious that the program is very kind of like eclectic to everything that they're going to be asked to do.
Hmm.
So my thing is that I'm thinking about in the gym, I recreate a lot of the stunt scenes in the gym. So with Daniel, whether he's got to like run along something, through a window, over a balustrade, run down something, get on one knee, be in a position, with a weapon, stuff like that. So I emulate that in the gym, and I do it over and over and over again. And then it goes to the stunt room, and it will be choreographed in the stunt room, and then it goes to the stage where he'll perform it on the stage.
Hmm.
So it's a very conscious. So these are very very rigid patterns that I create. That the body is kind of like forming these patterns. It can get up off the ground very 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 quickly. It can shoot through a window very very quickly.
Hmm.
So when people say what is, and I'm like, I can tell you what these actors do, but you're never going to be able to go to the gym and actually recreate because you're going to look crazy. So yeah, that's the kind of like the difficult thing is that the gym stuff's easy, when we're using resistance or machines or we're using dumbbells or we're using the usual things that we all kind of like use in our everyday kind of like gym routines. But then to recreate the stunt sequences is that's just that's the thing that people don't don't get.
Hmm.
So you mean I can like write great books and tell you that this is what we did, and I can create those patterns a little bit with like plyometrics or kind of like um, dynamic stretching or all these things. So my first goal is always to think, look, I need to create a program where and minimizing injury. That's the biggest thing. Like you said before, you can't get injured, because you get injured on a huge movie set,
Hmm.
it is a fortune
Hmm.
to kind of like then go into kind of like, well, if you need an operation, or you need to kind of like rest it, if it's a tear or if it's a break or if it's a strain or whatever, you need to be arrested for X amount of time.
And he famously like did, at least in the early movies, all of his or many of his own stunts, right? And
Yeah,
he did get injured a few
yeah,
times.
all the time. You know, he's so I don't want to say injury prone, but when you want to do everything, and when you're doing everything, you know, you are heightening the percentage of getting injured, because what we kind of like see on the screen, we don't realize that that's taken like 3 or 4 weeks to shoot, and it's being done kind of like, you know, can be done kind of like a dozen times,
Hmm.
over and over and over again, different angles, different speeds, you know, different looks, and that's what's kind of like hard. And you have to really manage, like especially like the directors, that, you know, they just want the best, and but he's not, you know, these actors, they're not robots, they're humans, and you can't be expected to, and you're just thinking, whoa. And that is again like me knowing the idiosyncrasies of going, he's getting tired now, this is this fourth attempt at trying to do that, and it is kind of like we're getting close to kind of like injury time now, and I've got to be super brave, and it's really hard because it's intimidating. Movie sets are intimidating, and you know, and I'm just a very very small part in a huge kind of like wheel, and you've got to be knocking someone on the shoulder, going, I reckon one more, and I'd start being careful now.
And he has to look fresh for every take.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So recovery is everything. So that's again, that comes back to kind of like why I like write the programs that I write, like in my book and stuff like that. That 5-2 method is, you're going kind of like, you're doing one thing for a certain amount of time, and then you're doing 2 minutes of, say, like kind of like quite high intensity cardio, and then you need to be able to kind of like recover, and then go again, and then recover a little bit, but just doing something and then go again. So it is kind of like a lot of like, I do like a lot of interval training.
Hmm. So wait, what is the 5-2 method?
So 5-2 is basically, so one side of the fence, you've got, you would have 5 exercises, and that's again, you can determine what day it is. So if it's legs day, you know, you can kind of have you can have like squats there, you can have Nordics there, you can kind of like have whatever leg exercise you want, leg extensions, kind of like leg press. So you have your 5 exercises, but you do one. So it's basically, you basically do, it's an accumulator kind of like style, and but I don't like rest phases in between. I'm very much like, because we're all time poor,
Hmm.
and that's the thing, and that's the same on a movie set. We're very time poor. People are always asking, how long are you going to be? How long? It's like, so I created these kind of like these ways of working out to maximize the time that I kind of had. I've always got a 20 or 30 or 40 in my head, depending on, you know, a little bit late, kind of like didn't sleep very well, or all the factors that come into kind of like what program I'm going to kind of like do today.
Hmm.
So yeah, the exercises, and they can be so you start with one exercise, and then a couple of minutes of cardio. Choose what you like. It could be a plyometric, could be on the verso climber, could be kind of like on the assault bike. 2 minutes. Come back to the next exercise. So 2 exercises, and then back to 2 minutes 3, and then back to 2 minutes 4, and then kind of like 5. And you can. I think what I've tried to do with that is teach a methodology that you can take everywhere with you, rather than teach a hardened gym routine. Because a hardened gym routine, like, you know, we can't take everywhere with us, because we travel and we do so many things in so many different places. And this is like with the nutrition. It's like, it's better to have parameters than it is to have a plan, because
Hmm.
the parameters you can take and apply anywhere.
Hmm.
The same with the gym, kind of like the same with the gym routine. Teach yourself a great methodology that works for you. You can take it anywhere. You can apply that in the hotel. You can apply that in the park.
You're so right.
You can apply it at home, and then you can apply it in the gym. So you've always got that safety net of going, I know my routine. I don't have to kind of like walk into the gym and go, oh, for me, traveling, go, oh, that's in kilos and not in pounds. What am I going to do? Oh, there's numbers on this one. Oh my God, like, they don't have this machine in here. What am I going? So it's all about kind of like, I think, teaching parameters, like throughout like the nutrition, and then teaching methodology. It's in your head. It's two simple things. You're done. and that's it. You're at the races.
You're so right. Because I mean, I'm here. I've been in London for the past 5 days, and I've had epic workouts. I can't read the dumbbells. I don't know what the hell a kilo is. I'm like out of my dietary comfort zone. I've been
Yep,
eating every meal's at a restaurant,
yep,
right? I
yep.
can't control,
No
I mean, I can
control.
control the controllables, but like, there's not much that I can control.
No, and they're the variables. It's like they're the things that you have to kind of like take control of. And I think kind of like making sure, yeah, and all the other factors that come with it as well. So you just got like your nutritional kind of like side of things with all the parameters, and then your fitness side of things. You got to make sure that you're getting the right amount of sleep, and then the right amount of quality sleep, and then kind of like making sure that you hydrate, and then and all the little kind of like things that are normally, I mean, that they're easy to manage when you're in a contained environment at home. That they're simple. You're in a routine. But then when you're out, like you are, if you're in London or wherever you are in the world, you've then got to kind of try and apply those. So I'm very much like I very much like keep them in my head so that I know that I'm safe when I'm out and about.
Dude, I've been such a weirdo in the gyms. I'm like, hey Siri, what is 12 kilos in pounds?
Yeah,
Like quietly to
yeah,
myself to my phone,
I know.
you know? It's so true.
Well, as a trainer, you become a bit of a mathematician anyway, because you're forever counting, and then you've got especially if you've got like multiple clients like during the day, and if you haven't written notes but I'm very kind of like perceptive, like of kind of like, okay, so 2.2, yeah, so that's 2.2 times this, yeah, and so we become a little bit kind of like mathematicians. We're all reps, sets, weights, kilos, kind of like. But then you get a curveball, and this is really, the simplistic thing is like, oh, now it's 1 to 10. Like, what does that even equate to? So, yeah, yeah.
How much time did you have with Daniel leading up to Casino Royale? Like how long did it take you to get in him? I mean, I'm assuming he was already in pretty good shape. I mean, he was a working actor, but like, from the time that you started working with him to, let's say, that scene where he's coming out of the water, like how long did it take?
So the process is that I would get like him and I got like a call probably maybe 4 months before pre-production. So and I got flown to Washington, and he was on a different movie,
Hmm.
and I met him in Washington, and we went out, discussed it, went out for dinner, discussed like what he wanted to do, what he wanted to achieve, and then it's for me to kind of like then go away and go, well, this is how we're gonna like apply this. And it is, I mean, and I've told this story quite a few times, and I banged on his trailer door when he was there, and he had a bacon sandwich in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and kind of like, oh no, you're the training guy. I'm like, yeah, and he's like, oh god, I'll just finish these for the last time, I think. So I think he probably quite enjoyed that. I think that's a thing where some people, it's like someone comes into your life and you get maybe rid of those bad habits and start better habits. So yeah, that's happened there. Probably about 4 months, and then the scene. I remember reading the script, and that's what I do. I break down the script into two parts: the aesthetic and the athletic.
Hmm.
So I need to know what I'm working on and the time frames that I've got to achieve the desired results. So and then I can see that, and then so what I do is I read the script. I go, okay, okay, and then there'll be a schedule of when they're going to shoot those particular shots. So I just like highlight exactly kind of like in the script what it is, but it was tied to a chair, naked, coming out the sea, kind of like just in kind of like these kind of shorts. Um, you know, like taking some shrapnel out of your chest, but it's a full kind of like frontal kind of like shot, like all these things, and I just highlight them all, and then I look at the athletic portion, sprinting like through a jungle, like over a fence, landing on some sand, going up some scaffolding, after the scaffolding, doing a fight scene at height, and you just think the systems that he's using, the physiological systems, because I'm literally kind of like then doing a transfer to kind of like going, right, this is on paper. I'm now looking at the effects this is going to have on the body. So what systems are going to be used? You know, is he going to burn out his adrenals? Is he going to like is he going to like really kind of like struggle for energy on this scene? Is he think about the hydration, think about kind of, all the things that the physiological effects that a trainer would kind of like think about and have to implement to get that person to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So, and then when I can see the water scene, I then have the schedule. I put a big red X there,
Hmm.
and then I do the periodization back to where we're at now. How many weeks have I kind of like got? What's the typical kind of like rate that I could maybe kind of get him to? Can I get him to put on like a little bit more muscle and compromise having a bit more body fat and then drop back down again? Or am I gonna go? Am I gonna risk it and just go? Let's just kind of like have let's not go down the heavy lifting like high protein kind of like typical like maybe bodybuilding kind of like diet, because that's then gonna really compromise his kind of like his athletic ability, because we might lose some flexibility, and it might put a bit more of a strain on his cardiovascular system carrying a bit more weight.
Hmm.
So I'm constantly reevaluating, and I just look like every couple of weeks, and I think actually we're doing okay. Body fat's kind of like not bad. We're kind of like quite stable with body fat. He's happy on that kind of like that blend of macros, and he's performing well. And then we get to kind of like maybe 3-4 weeks out from that scene, and that's when, you know, again it just comes to I just dropped dropped to drop the carbs a little bit, increase the cardio a little bit, still using the same method, but just adding a couple more minutes of kind of like cardio, and just taking out like maybe 200-300 kind of like calories, or changing calories around, just changing the mix a little bit.
Hmm.
And then I would do a little bit thinking about kind of would the dehydration thing work, like, and recarbing work on that scene? And I'm thinking, dare I give it a go? Because you've got to do this whilst working. You've got to do it while working. Okay, I'm going to give it a little go. So and then because I've got his trust, things start to change without him realizing that they're changing.
Hmm.
So like none of those potatoes today. So things are changing. I just changed them like a watch, and then again I just increased water. So I had that. I had the. It's a very old kind of like technique of what I thought would kind of like work, increasing like lots and lots and lots and lots of water. So
Hmm.
so getting the brain to get used to kind of like 4 liters P, 4 liters P, 4 liters P, and I keep that process, carbs low, 4 liters P, carbs low, and and I think I kind of like I made it work. And then on the day I do the kind of like very old like technique. It's like kind of like the 4 liters P. The brain is knowing that that's what it's processing on a daily basis. And on the day I kind of like stop. So on the day I basically just implement half a liter.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like
So you kind of dehydrate him a little bit
well, a
to
little
make
bit,
with the
yes.
goal of making him look a little more
Yeah,
vascular.
just a little bit more vascular. So again, the 4 liters P kind of like process that kind of like works, and then on the day of the race is just kind of like half a liter, and the brain still processes 4 liters, so it's still kind of like peeing out 4 liters. So you lose a little bit of kind of like water,
Hmm.
and then obviously I just give a little bit more carbohydrate, a bit more vascular. The kind of like the cells just kind of like fill up, and we
Because
get
you're dehydrated, but you're flooding the
yeah,
muscles with what, glycogen,
yeah,
which so
yeah,
you're bringing water into the
yeah.
muscles, but wow.
So and it's a very old well, it's a very old kind of like process, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It derives from those old kind of like bodybuilding days, and the night before it's like literally trying to get everything, every little, and you eat like the worst thing, like you kind of, oh, we need a bit of fructose and some oats, and let's put some chocolate in there, and it's like, and let's make it into a shake, and you're literally kind of like getting the pump shake.
Hmm.
And yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
and it worked, and it's not horrendously kind of like scientific. It's not the people, but people would break that down into, well, it can't work because it's this, and well, it shouldn't work because it's that. You know what? Sometimes things just kind of like work because they work, and because you're there and you're watching and you're observing and you're seeing the physiological effects, you're thinking, okay, yeah, because what works for one doesn't work for another.
Hmm.
That's what we kind of like. That's what we typically know about everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, obviously, he's so incredibly lucky to have somebody like you know, on his team to get him into that shape. But I think what's so empowering, particularly for your average person, my listeners, is that this is not like, I mean, he's still bound to the limits of the human body, you
Yes.
know, so you can only push him so hard. And I read, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, he was still having like beers on weekends,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think kind of like that's when we come to the the mental side of things, and that's when you need a little bit of a we need a little bit of a break, and we still kind of like do that now on a lot of kind of like things,
Hmm.
and we have kind of like and we have definitely kind of like I don't really like calling it like a cheat day because you're not really cheating.
It's part of the plan.
Yeah, we just have a fun normal.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to normalize it because it's just what you do at the weekend. You know, you work hard and you do everything that you need to do and you achieve everything you need to achieve. And then at the weekends, you're with either friends or you're with a family and you're out and you're relaxed, just doing family and friend stuff.
Hmm.
And that's great. You know, it's good to have a little bit of um, like dirty nutrition at the weekend. Why not?
Hmm.
It's like that's if that's what you fancy. But some people don't. I mean, I'm kind of like I'm easy. I mean, I use my time away to be maybe that 10% more kind of stricter or stringent while I'm away because it's just a bit easier. Because again, we're in that controlled environment. But then when I'm at home, I've got kids that I have to finish their ice cream, and I've got so all those things that just kind of go, just unconsciously, and that's just life. You have to have those things, and we would go out and have a relaxation time of a few beers and a lie-in and not be so kind of like strict,
I
and
love it.
that's just the way it is.
How did you get to the point where you're working with such incredible, like A-list actors doing such incredible work? I mean, because a lot of like trainers, healthcare professionals listen to my show. You've reached the pinnacle of success by many metrics. Like, so tell me about like your journey. How do you link up with Eon Productions, which owns like the James Bond character, and like, you know,
Yeah, it's all very, very different. I think because of initially it was I remember writing about like military philosophy,
hmm,
like fitness philosophy, like for a magazine, and I got like picked up from there by a studio who had and that was kind of like a pierce job, and I just went in did the interview process, and and you do a good job, and you don't try and you just be humble about it all the time, and you stay in your lane, and you do what you do, um, and from then it's just I suppose it's like a little bit of luck, I suppose,
huh,
but I'm always like, yeah, it's okay having a little bit of luck, but when you've created that luck, you then have to perform, so you can't. There's no winging it. They are so, and I think that's where the military thing comes in really handy.
hmm,
Is that there is just no time. It's like literally you are hitting the ground running, and this is a results based business, and the film business is it's there's two words there. There's a film, and then it's a business. So you are really like up against it, and I've seemed to have refined it a methodology that works for them and it works for me.
hmm.
I'm pretty quick with starting to get like results. I'm really quick at kind of like figuring it out, because I think for a lot of kind of like people, it takes a while to figure out their clients and what's actually working, and they're changing things so kind of like much, or that's not working, or whether it's a kind of from a nutritional kind of like standpoint,
Yeah.
whether like every single different kind of like nutrition plan, you may have to, because you gotta stay on things quite consistently to see whether you're getting kind of results. So I hit the ground running. I'm thinking, I do like almost like I'd call it an MOT here, but in America you wouldn't call it an MOT, like a body scan. So I can figure I can figure like people out quite quickly, like the levels of intensity that they're willing to work at, the nutrition, how compliant they are, like their recovery. How much do they need? Are they sleeping well? Are they quite conscious of kind of like all the things we talked about before, hydrating? Do they pick up things that are just like, so I figured out so quick, and I've managed to kind of like I've managed to apply that with all the other actors that I've kind of like worked with, and I've done some really really enjoyable jobs, and they're all the saving grace for me is that I've been really lucky. There's only been a couple that I've kind of like not really into it, but everyone else has just been there so because they're on screen and they're doing these transformations, they're so compliant, and that makes my job so much easier.
Hmm.
The other ones are like really really kind of like tough, of where we've all had those clients where they kind of like you're telling them one thing and they're telling you, yeah, I'm doing that, and you're going, you can't be. There's no way. I know my method works. Please. And it's like, yeah, I've been honestly, Si, I've been doing this, and it's like, okay. And I've had some great kind of like funny like things and that happening. There was a guy that was playing at he was on a slave ship, and he was, I won't name him, but he was like, and he was meant to be kind of like getting leaner and leaner and leaner because he was he was food deprived, and he had to look physically like that.
Hmm.
And then the studio would be ringing me, kind of like going, "Oh, I'm not quite sure, Si. He's like, he seems to be putting on a little bit of weight every day, and like the camera ain't lying here." And I'm like, and I'd ring, and another one of my trainers that I work with was like working with him, and he's like, "Honestly, we have got the nutrition down. Honestly, we have got." I'm like, "Oh, this is not working. What's going on?" Okay, and he's just eating like from where we told him to eat from. Yeah, he's saying he is. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna be really cheeky. So I like rang production. I said, do you pay his room bill? And they're like, yeah, we pay his kind of room. Could you just pull his real room bill for the last kind of like 3 weeks?
Oh man,
And so
room service will get you.
yes. So like I said, and it's a little bit naughty, and kind of and so they pulled like his room bill, and I can see his room bill kind of like going spaghetti bolognese, burger and fries, bottle of wine. I'm
Oh my
thinking, and I'm
God.
like, oh, but we just kind of like laughed at, in the end you kind of like laugh about it, and you go, yeah, I'm doing everything, yeah, of course you are, but but then it's questioning
Of
our
course.
methods, and we're going, no way. This works. We know it does. This is our like 10th outing on this.
Oh
So
my
you pull
God.
his room bill, and there it all is, laid out in black and white.
Wow. Is there any advice that you would give your younger self?
Um, oh, that's always a really tough question, like all the time. I think kind of like just be my younger self. I would say just be consistent and don't be too hard on yourself for not getting the results that you want when you kind of like want them.
Hmm.
But be consistent with yourself. I think consistency is the main thing. And also just once you've adopted some habits that you like, keep them, and don't get rid of all the bad habits that you've got, because sometimes they're the enjoyable ones that allow you to like live a kind of like a mentally sane life. You don't
Hmm.
have to be too hard on yourself, because I was hard on myself for a long time. And we all are. You want to, when we're younger, we're going through a different phase. It's like you want to be able to look good. And I think, like I said before, I think always kind of like maybe thinking, applying that kind of like that performance element in all aspects of your life. I think that I would just kind of like, don't be so hung up on the aesthetics of everything, and don't be so hung up on the metrics of everything. The hardest metric to measure is mental health.
Hmm.
That's a very difficult. There's no calipers, there's no scales. It's what you've got there, and you can't find that metric is very very difficult to find. But I think by talking to people, that's the biggest thing. Yeah, it's quite lonely as a trainer, like out and about, and you're taking on everyone else's. This is the thing, as a trainer, you've got 4 or 5 clients a day. You're taking on all their kind of like on your shoulders, and you need the release. So it's good to kind of have a good buddy, have a good friend to be able to kind of like chat with, to relinquish all your clients' kind of like demons that they've given you throughout the day.
Hmm.
And that's what's really 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 tough, because you know emotional. They can be quite emotionally. I'm not saying everybody, but you can get like emotional vacuum cleaners who are literally, that they need that you're used not only as a trainer, but you're there almost as a nearly a therapist as well.
Wow.
So I think for me, is to be kind to myself, my younger self, and not be so hung up on the aesthetics of everything.
Hmm. That makes perfect sense.
Mm.
Yeah, because I mean, like an actor they're under a ton of pressure, especially like a leading man, the main character. Like Daniel's position, right? Like there's a ton of pressure, and then he's like dieting into the mix. He's maybe a little dehydrated thanks to you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of. I would imagine that would be an agitated state.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so many different factors with the, you're kind of, he's having to do a job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like all actors are actually working. All my stuff are all additional things that you have to kind of like think about.
Hmm.
So, it's not part of the day. That's your responsibility.
Yeah.
So you are really kind of, yeah, you're working extended days of your own responsibility for yourself, the way you look, the way you feel, the way you recover. Then the work, which is your performance, and then obviously you've got a family and friends.
Hmm.
You've got family life as well. So you're trying to juggle like lots of different kind of like elements within kind of like your life. So you have to find a really good kind of like life work balance.
Balance. Yeah, balance is super super important.
Completely, yeah.
Hmm. Very interesting. When it comes to like your nutrition philosophy, I know it's pretty unique. You've got like a system where every day of the week there's like a different kind of theme. Can you talk us through that?
I think it just came about because it just seemed easier to get variety into a nutrition plan that sometimes can get a little bit kind of like bland, and if you play it completely kind of like safe, because if you go to and sometimes you got to go to your safe place of where you're doing x amount of kind of like carbohydrate, x amount of protein, x amount of fats. And some people say, I'm happy to eat the same thing every single day, as long as I like it, and that's it. And you go, okay.
Great.
Some people can't do that. Some people kind of like go, I need variety because otherwise I'm going to get bored and I'm going to pick up from wherever. And you
Hmm.
kind of go, okay. So the system I kind of like
Which one of those
a
archetypes is Daniel?
variety.
Variety prefers
Yeah, yeah,
variety.
yeah. Complete variety. I think you can look at. I mean, I know from other kind of like trainers and other people, like say for I don't know, maybe like say like Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor. I think he's happy to kind of like eat kind of like chicken, broccoli, and rice every day, kind of like twice a day.
The bodybuilder diet.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's like, if you're happy doing that and you feel safe doing that, then that's great. But there's not much variety in that, and but you're getting the desired results that you want. Amazing. And yeah, so I try to kind of have like variables on different days. So Monday, notoriously is like a vegan vegetarian day, because I know the weekend's been a little bit rough. So I'm like keeping it kind of like, yeah, let's kind of like, it's almost like a bit of a, not a detox or a cleanse, but just a little bit kind of like, let's just get everything back in there. Let's get
So it's
all the
like,
nutrients. Let's
yeah.
get all them nutrients in there, all those dark green leafy things. Let's kind of like, let's start like getting the body kind of like feeling like it's alive again. And then kind of Tuesday I would make it kind of like maybe like pescatarian, and just a bit of fish. Same again. Add a little bit of the usual dark green leafy kind of like stuff in there. You know, spices, nuts, getting your fiber, getting all the things that we know that we kind of like need. And then Wednesday would be kind of like white meat Wednesday, so we got like chicken or turkey or whatever we kind of like want on there. And then again, like we'll be back to kind of like maybe like doing like vegetarian Thursday, and then everyone's favorite day would be kind of like red meat Friday. And it's like, yes, Red Meat Friday. I love Red Meat Friday. So yeah, and I just kind of like keep it like that. And again, like you say, so the macros would be kind of like different depending on what we're shooting. The days would be kind of like those kind of like theme days, and then the calories would probably stay pretty much the same. And there's the parameters, and there's the variety, and it's so simplistic.
Hmm.
It's like, and people go, really, is that it? It's like, it kind of is, yeah. But I have the luxury of when you're working on big kind of like movies that they have a lot of people that they can tap into, and I would be able to go to a chef and say, look, this is kind of like what I'd like. These are the parameters I'd like to stick to. You know, kind of like let me know what you're gonna do. And
Hmm.
so I've got amazing kind of like people like that I kind of like use when I'm putting infrastructure onto a big movie, and they have that where I can go to a chef and they can be as creative as possible. And that's a nice thing. I don't like to stunt the chef's kind of like creativity. So because that's the worst thing, because a production would employ kind of like a cast chef, and the trainer comes with the work, and you gotta go. So I'm cooking chicken, broccoli, and rice for the next 8 months, twice a day, every day, and you can't go. I know that's pretty much, and you go, oh,
They're
so
like, I'm a trained
it's
chef.
like that's what I mean. Yeah, that's really. So I have an amazing kind of like chef that she's kind of like great, and she's a Australian girl, and her influences are from Asia. So she works really great, with amazing kind of like spices and all the things that make that normally things that taste quite bland, they taste kind of like phenomenal,
Hmm.
but without kind of like any extra kind of like calories.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing that I kind of like, and she's great. So I'm taking the burden from the actor nutritionally, and then so I like it comes to me, but then I'm passing the book again. So that's nice for me, because it's just another thing like off my shoulders, and I trust her to kind of like stick to the cows, make it interesting. Never had any complaints, and we've already had kind of like great results.
What are the overarching parameters? Like, I'm assuming you have to keep. Do you aim to keep protein at a certain level? Are you a little bit more conservative with the added fats? Like, how are you? Yeah, what are the overarching guidelines that you
I'm
use?
really kind of I don't I'm really kind of like normally like as far as like the macro breakdown kind of like goes, like just 60% probably like protein. I try and keep the 60% protein, especially if we're putting on a little bit of trying to put a little bit more muscle tissue on, and then like in 30% kind of like carbs, 10% kind of like great fats.
Hmm.
So that's
So that's pretty low fat and very high
yeah,
protein. Yeah.
yeah. So that's pretty much like the parameters that I kind of like stick to, and that seems to kind of like really kind of like work. It's just there, and then increasing kind of like fats a little bit. I mean, I can always like do that on how people are feeling, kind of like energy wise. So, and I can take 10% off the protein and add another 10%. So I just really, like I say, like you're really micromanaging like on a daily basis,
Hmm.
and then um, eating kind of like consistently, every kind of like at least I try 2 to 3 hours. There is something that we consume. So it's not, yeah, it's a consumption every 2 or 3 hours, whether that can be in the form of a shake, or actual as a snack, or something like that.
What's the purpose of that?
I just think it's a mental thing. I just think kind of like mentally, it's not about ever feeling hungry or ever feeling the want, and giving you that the anxiety of kind of like the anxiety of feeling like you're going to get hungry and you need to eat,
Hmm.
because you start kind of like getting a little bit, your concentration levels. But if you're always fueled the whole time. You're not kind of like getting these big dips, and then you're not getting these kind of you know sugar highs, sugar lows. Not that we kind of like have that much sugar, but it's refined sugar. Um, but I think it's more of a mental state than it is a kind of like physical state.
Hmm. It's more
It,
for the like the psychological
always,
benefit.
yeah, always. You're never looking for a meal. because after you've eaten, after a couple of hours, there's something kind of in your hand. You go, oh, this is kind of like great. It's
Hmm.
that habit. It's that kind of great pick up habit. That's kind of like, because on a movie set, it's difficult because you've got people like walking around with kind of like all these kind of different snacks because they're fueling everybody. You collectively, you're all in this together, and you're all kind of like, everybody needs kind of like the energy. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's good. There's things to pick up which are maybe not so great for you. So I make sure that every 2 hours that all my actors are kind of like are fed.
Hmm. Are you a big supplementation guy? Does James Bond take protein shakes?
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
We have them kind of like made, and I'm really, I'm again with the supplementation thing. It's just the basics. I'm just really kind of like there on the basics of supplements. We live in England, so kind of like our vitamins and D3 and all the ones that we get from the sun is
What son?
exactly. So that's that. And you're in a movie studio as well, so and a little bit of like a little bit of creatine, a little bit of glutamine, some branched chain amino acids. B6, B12, just the real basics, kind of like hydration. So making sure we've got good hydration. The minerals, I'm a big fan of like taking like the good kind of like magnesiums and potassiums, so that we're trying to kind of like really kind of like get really good sleep. I'm a big kind of like believer in that. I'm a big believer in kind of like
What is the term you've used? A term called, it's like performance sleep or something,
well,
or
it's something like performance sleeping. Yeah, you got to create your environment, right?
hmm.
I think kind of it's the biggest. It's the we spend like, well, most of us, if we can, you spend a third in bed asleep.
Yeah.
So create it. We spend so much time kind of like in like you know with our programs and our nutrition and stuff like that, that we just take sleep for granted. And it's like it's the most important factor out of everything. Out of everything. It's like if you're not sleeping, your day ain't going right.
Hmm.
So it is about kind of like creating your environment, like what makes you sleep the best, what gets you into kind of like REM, and whether it's supplementation or with a bit of magnesium, or is it kind of like music, or is it whatever. um Maybe not a candle. I'm not really into that, but the right kind of like light, the right kind of temperature. It's all about all those little kind of like things that can kind of like help you perform and sleep.
Yeah. I have a quote from you: train like a child, recover like a granddad.
Yes. Yeah. So the train like a child thing is, I think, is kind of like, if you need to kind of like start like your regime, it's like, ride your bike kind of like you used to, kind of like throw a ball around, kind of like just the movement patterns, like go back to kind of like the enjoyment when you were a child, like on a climbing frame, or kicking a soccer ball around, or throwing or pitching a kind of like a baseball, or all those things. It's like just start off like doing all those kind of things, and then recover, like when you see your granddad in his chair like having a nap.
Hmm.
Yeah, do it. It's a performance nap. It's
Hmm.
great. He needs it. It's like, why not apply that to yourself? You might enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And our granddad's going to bed early and gets a really good kind of like night's sleep. Yeah. So I always
Hmm.
like thought, yeah, just train like a child and kind of like and recover like a granddad.
Hmm. Why do you think James Bond has become such a cultural hero? Like, why is he such an iconic? How do you become such an iconic and aspirational character? I mean, I'm a massive fan, and this is a question that I ask myself regularly. Like, why did I become such a, I mean, I can tell you, I was like sick one weekend, and I decided to, fairly recently. Like, this isn't hasn't been like a for the entirety of my life thing. This is a fairly recent. I just binged all of the five Daniel Craig movies, and I was like, I'm in. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But
I-
why? Like, why? Like, he's also the biggest grossing franchise of all cinema, like of all time, right? $7 billion, if I recall correctly.
yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Insane.
It is insane. And I think the reason why they're so popular, the way that they're filmed as well. I think now, like a lot of movies are so they don't really go on location that much because it's quite expensive. But the way that they kind of like film, it's like it's just insane. You're like, 1 minute you're in Austria, the next minute you're in Chile, then you're coming back and you're in Italy, and then you're coming back and you're at Pinewood Studios in London, and they film for real at real locations. so it feels so real.
Hmm.
That's the thing. And also as well, it's nice to have that escapism feeling like that because you can recognize places and you can go, oh, that's the Colosseum. Oh, that's the, kind of like different places wherever we are in, that's the Sahara Desert. Oh my God, now they're in the Alps, and we can all kind of like relate to that. I think with a lot of like, with Star Warses and Marvel and stuff like, we can't relate because we don't exist in those spaces. It's great escapism, but we can bring it back to reality with kind of like movies like kind of like Bond because we could we could actually sit in that car and be driven in it because it's for real. That's a thing that you could aspire to kind of like want or be. Those suits or whatever, and those places, they're all for real. And I think that's what's really kind of like that's what's really nice about them is that you can sit there and you can be aspirational about it. Whether you reach those heights or not is a different matter. You got to take some elements out. I think kind of like the spy and stuff, and the gadgets and stuff like that. Yeah, that's not going to be part of your life. But all the other things can be part of your life. So
I
you
mean,
can.
he's a person. He's not a superhero.
No, exactly. So he can be hurt. He can be, and he can be vulnerable. Like all of us. So the superhero bit, I think they've got it now. I mean, I haven't watched actually the latest one, Guardians of the Galaxy, but in the first one, you can you can see some vulnerabilities in those characters, which I think is kind of like important. But yeah, it's not about kind of like not all superheroes wear capes.
Yeah, well, the vulnerability thing is massive, and that's I think one of the real kind of defining aspects of Daniel Craig's tenure as James Bond was he really brought that to the screen. Whereas previously, he was like really kind of this like suave, untouchable, almost gimmicky character. Whereas James, he had this like Daniel had this like sensitive side, and brought this real sort of humanness to the role.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think Daniel changed the premise of it all. It's like it went from exploding sandwiches and kind of like and umbrellas that turned into
Yeah,
machine guns and stuff like that. I mean, that's all really really fun and there are elements of that, but just he brought his elements into it. There's still the same funny gags, but just done in a more realistic way.
mm,
That's what I kind of like felt is that it's just as funny and and I just like used to smile at kind of like some things, and in some of the movies he gets given his gadgets and it's like it's like the most boring thing ever, and it's kind of like it's like
a
but
watch.
yeah,
What does it do? It
nothing.
tells the
Yeah,
time.
it's a radio. It does nothing. Oh, but it's still kind of like quite useful, all the all those, but they're very actual similar gags, but just kind of like done in a different way. Just
Yeah.
kind of like really kind of yeah, and again, like you said, but it made it more realistic, and it made it probably in from my opinion, Daniel made the role like you said, it gave the character vulnerability, and that is where we can all relate to that. We're all kind of like vulnerable.
No,
In
he's
fact, vulnerability is probably is the best, I don't know, the strongest tool that we have to feel vulnerable. I think that's a real like strong um, I watched something lately. I'm just trying to think. It's such a great quote. I can't remember it at the minute, but it's such a great quote about like showing vulnerability is the biggest strength we have.
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely true. I've done a bit of reading about like the James Bond franchise trajectory on screen, and obviously I'm not privy to any information that's not public, but yeah, it was like at a really interesting time where in the early 2000s, obviously like 9/11 happened, which made the world a much more serious place.
Yeah.
And the Pierce the Pierce Brosnan movies, they had taken a turn kind of where they'd become, yeah, gimmicky with all the, crazy gadgets and things like that, which kind of opened the door for Austin Powers at the time to come out and take the piss, I guess,
Yes.
a,
Yeah.
a bit out of that, out of that, of the tropes that had been so common in the
Yeah.
prior James Bond films. And then somewhere in the early 2000s, you got the Jason Bourne movie
Yeah, yeah,
came out,
yeah,
and that was like that portrayed the spy as like a killer. He was like this like really tough guy,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which was actually very different for that genre.
Yes.
And then so you have the combination of like it was like 9/11, it was like Austin Powers, and then Jason Bourne, where I guess the producers were like, okay, we have to step it up. We've got to make this like a real serious character with vulnerability and ultimately he's got to be a killer. This can't just, be like more of the same gag stuff,
Yeah. Yeah,
Fascinating.
well, yeah, it's always fascinating, and the storylines are always absolutely, yeah, absolutely fascinating. What I kind of what was really funny that happened to me one day. I remember getting a call, and going, so yeah, Simon, just wondering if you'd be available just to come and speak to Rowan for us. He's playing Johnny English, and I'm like, oh. I'm like, because we know that you train like James Bond, right? I'm like, yeah. You're like going, oh no, I'm now got to, I might have to now like train the fake James Bond to be. So that was a very kind of like funny call,
That's
and I
funny.
had to, yeah. And in the end, it didn't kind of like work out. It didn't work. I don't know why. I think it was like a timing thing, but I got asked to kind of like go and like train like Rowan Atkinson to portray like Johnny English, who was obviously
Wow.
doing a spoof of James Bond.
I was
So
a big Mr. Bean fan growing up.
yeah, yeah. I think he's probably got to be like super fit to spoof an action hero is probably harder than actually playing an action hero.
Hmm.
I'd say it's really really tough,
Hmm.
really tough.
I would imagine. Is it safe to assume that you, and obviously don't share anything that you can't, I know you won't, but uh is it safe to assume that you're gonna be the trainer for the next James Bond, whoever that is?
Oh, you never know, and and yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great to kind of like be asked, but I'm always now. I think when I started in my business from a business perspective, it was very few people doing what maybe I kind of like do. And I think kind of like the relevance of what I do, because my big thing is always like relevance. You train for relevance for the part of the movie. Now, when someone's going to get that kind of like job, they will already be working out. They will already have a team of people that's kind of like helping them. But whether they're helping them in the way to play that character is a different thing. They'll be helping them to look good, feel good, sleep good, all the things that we kind of like we know what we should do. But then there's the next element of which is what I do, is the relevance to the script and working out the stunt scenes and how to apply them. And so there's not many people that do that because there's not that many jobs around that kind of warrant that. So whether when they cast the next kind of like James Bond, he may have his own person that he's liked and he's worked with for 10 years, and so then that's not part of that's not going to be my remit where they're going to go, no, you can't have your person, you work with this person, and they inherit like the last person, because that to take that, he may say, well, I want actually to take it to the next level, and that person might be someone else. There's always going to be someone else who's kind of like got different thoughts than what I have.
Hmm.
And but then again, with me, it might be a kind of like, it might be a safety net of going, we've used Simon before, he knows what he's doing, he knows how to get someone all the way through a production and doing what we need him to kind of like do.
Hmm.
And but if you stick with the other person, that's a bit of a chance. But and I've had enough time in the Bond franchise. I've done 7 movies. I've been around for kind of like nearly, over 20 years around it. I'm very happy kind of like of doing all those things. And also for me as well, I'm not getting any younger either. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy that I'm giving to someone else, and I might not be capable of doing it myself. I have to, go, if I get offered it, great. I mean, I'd be happy to kind of like help. I'd be happy to take the other characters, the villains, and all the others, and let the Bond people. But I wouldn't be disheartened if I kind of like I didn't do the next one. Um, but if I was offered to kind of like help, of course I would help 100%.
Hmm. Amazing. Looking back over the, the five films: Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, No Time to Die. Is there any scene or stunt that you're most proud of?
It's got to, I mean, always got to be kind of like the first thing. And so with Casino Royale, you're always proud of the first kind of like, thing that you kind of like do. And I think kind of like Casino Royale it was the first thing for everybody. It's the unknown, and that's what I think is really kind of like exciting. It's the unknown that you're putting something out there for the first time. Like when Daniel like walked out the water and people just went, "Whoa, whoa, no, this isn't right." So it's kind of like there's that's that moment, and I think that's where we get the most kind of like jubilation of what we do for I think most things in life. The first time is always the most the best time, and where you feel the most kind of like yeah, the most spark from it. And then when you do it again, you kind of get it. You kind of like, well, we have kind of like done this, and we do kind of like know it. So I think that's the thing. The first time of everything, like the same with all the other movies that I've kind of like that I've been lucky enough to be involved in. The first one is always the best on the franchise because everybody is so kind of like, so tuned in and trying to find their path and trying to find their way, and it's challenging, and that's what I think myself as a, as a, however you want to say it, a coach or a wellness facilitator. However, people put so many labels on themselves. I don't know nowadays. What are you? I don't know. I'm just a facilitator, a motivator, someone that just adds infrastructure and gets someone from A to B. It's like and I enjoyed the first thing I did on everyone. So I enjoyed Daniel for the first Bond, Chris Evans doing the first kind of like Captain America on the first Marvel kind of like movie. I enjoyed like transforming Chris Pratt for Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. Kind of which is great. The number one thing to kind of do again. I enjoyed like working on the Star Wars, like the first time that you see kind of like all those characters with Adam Driver and John
Mm.
Boyega and Oscar Isaac. They're all kind of like great. A different genre of movie. It's like you go from kind of like working, from the sprinting and the stunts to kind of like getting that kind of like dynamic flexibility and rotation of, yeah, you just got to kind of like with that lightsaber like move that and it's like trying to get all that kind of like all that going, which is
Mm.
kind of like which is really tough. But that's a nice thing about working in this business. You never know what you're going to get, and there's so many different kind of like factors of what you've got to pay attention to, and it all comes back to one thing, and that is performance. So get everything right performance wise, and everything else will take care of itself.
Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.